Alright, this is my first take of this video. So this is Void Linux on a MacBook Pro 2014. This is kind of the process of a whole year. So as you can tell, my cursor's kind of fucked up, but other than that, it works just fine. It's gonna be kind of laggy because I've got this running over a capture card right now. I'm recording this on my main desktop. But if you just need a laptop that runs Linux, I'll go through the story of why you may need this. So the 2014 has a bug right now. If you wipe the drive, which happened to me because I was running FreeBSD for a bit, I wiped the drive and I had to use Internet Recovery to get macOS back. On the 2014, that means it's going to download the first macOS version that shipped with it, which was Yosemite. The problem with Yosemite is now that Apple requires two-factor authentication, you're no longer able to sign into iCloud or App Store or anything in order to update your MacBook. So unless you want to go to an Apple store, or if you want to use Gib macOS or something, which is really, it's kind of out of my wheelhouse. I was like, fuck it, I'd rather just install Linux on this thing. What happened was, over the course of a year, I've tried all these different distributions, and I tried to nail down what exactly the problem was that was stopping me from doing it. You might think to yourself, oh, I've got a 2014, it's got the old NVIDIA graphics card, so Novu's gonna work fine. It's got no T1, no T2 chip like the 2015s, so it's not going to have trouble communicating with my keyboard. Everything's going to be fine, right? You would be wrong. And here's kind of the problem. So anything Debian based probably isn't going to work for you. I tried straight Debian, but the problem was it had trouble reading I should have used a net install, because for some reason my installation media just wasn't working. If I did get it to work, it may have worked, but I don't know. I did notice though that with Pop! OS, it would install and I can boot, but if it was encrypted, it would be the slowest startup time you've ever seen. And anytime you update, dpackage takes forever to update packages. I don't know what's wrong with it, but it hangs, and I believe it's because of the PCIe lanes on this SSD inside this MacBook. Apple does some weird fuckery with that, and it makes it really hard for dpackage to run. So Ubuntu had the same problem, except it didn't even install. I left it running for a few hours, and it did eventually get through most of its packages, but I wasn't waiting 4 hours to install Ubuntu just to have the same problem as Pop! OS. So I tried an Arch-based distribution, and I tried Zero Linux, Xero Linux. It booted and it ran, but it ran really slowly, and that's because it uses all these GPU-intensive processes, which this computer really doesn't like, especially on Novu. And I think I installed the proprietary driver, but I don't really remember. Anyways, it ran really slowly. The desktop was unusable. So I tried Manjaro, and Manjaro actually did work, and I was able to get up and running. And the Wi-Fi drivers just work out of the box. So if you need a distribution that'll work on this, I don't really like recommending Manjaro, but it will work for you. As long as you know that you're very unstable and it's got all the problems that Systemd has, which means you may end up breaking this computer. I apologize for saying that, but having anything Arch based on Systemd is a really bad idea, and I don't know if them holding back packages for 2 weeks is going to solve that if you get a bad grub update. It may use Systemd boot though, in which case you're probably fine. Arch, however, I couldn't get it to install either because it started complaining about the SSD. And so I just couldn't get it to install. I may have been able to do something if I did it all manually, but I doubt it. So Arch install didn't work. You may have been able to do it with stock, with just doing the regular Arch install instead of using the script, but I don't know. So I ended up on Void Linux, and Void Linux had its own problems, but I did get it working. So here's what you want to do. As you can see, it says that I've got MacBook Pro 11.3 kernel. This is important, right? What your kernel is. Sorry about that. So your kernel is gonna matter because what I'm going to show you next is my GitHub. This is important. So Void on 2014 MacBook Pro, and once Google's verified, I can start posting links. I'm gonna zoom that in for you. So what this is gonna do, you go to etsy rc.local. You're gonna enter this text in there. because what's going to happen is when you first boot up Void, you're not going to be able to use a trackpad. You're going to have to install a USB mouse, or figure out a way how to launch terminal. I never really learned the shortcuts, but if you can launch terminal and you can use V or Vim or Nano or whatever you want to use. I think Void ships V, so you want to use that. But anyways, you put mod probe -R USB mouse -R BCM 5974, and then mod probe BCM 5974. That gets the trackpad working. You may have to reboot after that, but after that your trackpad should work. And I'll show you again that my trackpad is working. I don't have a mouse or anything installed on here. Let me see where there it is. So yeah, my mouse does work. The next thing you want to do though, because you're not going to have Wi-Fi, so what you need is a Ethernet adapter. You can get those for a few bucks. I had one on hand because my dad used Ethernet over Thunderbolt. And you need that to get internet, because the next thing you're going to do is you're going to XBPS install S Broadcom/WL or -DKMS, and it's going to spit out an error saying that it can't build it because you're missing the Linux headers. But it'll tell you which kernel that is, and it's whatever the latest kernel is. So you do XBPS install S Linux whatever the number is .number -headers, and it should resolve the error. And then you do XPPS -reconfigure -A, and then it'll build it. And then I've noticed that my kernel did update recently, and I'm gonna actually run. Let me get my window back, because I am going to put this on the main screen, and hopefully that works. Let's do ps install syu. Oops, sorry, I did that wrong. Okay, let's see if it updates. Yeah, it's updating shit. Here, I'll put that back on the screen. So, I don't think it's updating kernel right now. I've already updated kernel. But if it did, it would say that it's rebuilding DKMS modules, and you should be good. Yeah, there it is. See, it's installing my DKMS module WL 6.30. So you should be good with that. After you've done all this, XFCE works just fine on a MacBook. It kind of looks like macOS just a bit, so the only thing I've noticed is the resolution isn't great, but I set it to like 150 zoom or something, like 125. I think I had to do a specific number or else it didn't scale. And I don't know about Wayland on this thing, but X works just fine, so you should be good. That should get you going on Void. If you decide that's the way you want to go for for this computer, because I really don't like the idea of like Apple being able to screw you over, and like just stop updates on your computer for no reason. I mean, not for no reason, obviously it's had like 10 years of support, but you can use things like OpenCore Legacy Patcher to get the latest macOS, but Intel is being slowly phased out, and I've noticed some new programs aren't being developed without ARM in mind. So you may want the software availability of Linux that you may not be getting on macOS. And for that, Linux is a really good option for these older MacBooks. So you may have thought that you lucked out with the 2014, but trust me, it has been a whole year of trying to work this out, and I don't know. I mean, I've got it up and running now, and I think it'll work for the near future, but don't expect to be doing any like gaming on this thing, or especially with Novu. You may be able to do the old proprietary driver, but honestly, open source is fine for like basic web browsing and stuff. That's about all. Thanks.